Okay. Well, good evening, everyone. And thank you again for your patience. I'm Pam Barton, the coordinator for the Northern Virginia and DC chapter of CHAD, and I want to welcome you to our September lecture, Stop Losing the Food Fight, which is presented by Dr. Kathleen Nadeau and Dr. Nicole Salman from the Chesapeake Center. The mission of our chapter aligns with the mission of CHAD National to improve the lives of children and adults who are affected with ADHD. Our chapter is a volunteer organization of trained professionals who offer support in a number of ways. We offer a free monthly lecture series on the second Tuesday evening of most months, like this lecture. We offer support groups for parents and adults, host an annual resource fair, which is coming up next month, and offer individual support through email inquiries. And now I'd like to share a little bit about our speakers. Dr. Kathleen Nadeau, who's on her way, is the founder and clinical director of the Chesapeake Center, ADHD Learning and Behavioral Health, located in Bethesda, Maryland, with satellite clinics across the state. She's the author and co-author of over a dozen books related to ADHD, focused on issues across the lifespan, from her longtime best-selling book for children, Learning to Slow Down and Pay Attention, to her current book on older adults, Still Distracted After All These Years. Dr. Nadeau received the CHAD Hall of Fame Award for her groundbreaking work on girls and women with ADHD. Dr. Nicole Salman recently completed postdoctoral fellowship in neuropsychology at St. Jude Children's Hospital in Memphis, Tennessee. Dr. Salman has extensive personal and professional knowledge about ADHD and has seen the impact that food and disordered eating habits have on people's lives. Dr. Salman has joined Dr. Nadeau in the development of a group program to support adults with ADHD in changing unhealthy, disordered eating patterns. So thank you so much, Dr. Nadeau and Dr. Salman, for sharing your knowledge and expertise with our ADHD community this evening.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. I look forward to sharing our knowledge with you all today. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen now. All right. Hopefully everyone can see this. If any issues arise, please speak up and let me know. As you can see at the bottom, I do have some closed captioning on so we can provide accessibility to all communities. I have to say it is not perfect, so bear with me a little bit. Sometimes it doesn't get everything entirely correct. But all right, so today I am speaking with you about ADHD and unhealthy eating patterns, as well as an introduction to our group, Stop Losing the Food Fight, that we've created. So looking forward to explaining this really important topic to us and how it impacts people of every walks of life, particularly those with ADHD. All right. To get started, I want to talk a little bit about ADHD and unhealthy life habits, as well as the impact on life expectancy. So Russell Barkley and many other researchers found that ADHD is linked to increased adverse consequences in nearly every domain of life activities studied to date. So some of which are linked to shortened life expectancy. So those with ADHD could expect to have approximately 11 to 13 years cut off their lives compared to neurotypical peers of similar age and health profiles. So this is due to ADHD symptoms, primarily what Barkley noted as low conscientiousness, poor self-regulation, and high impulsivity. So for instance, ADHD is associated with higher risks for accidental and self-inflicted injuries in both childhood as well as adulthood. Adverse driving outcomes, including more motor vehicle accidents. And those with ADHD are far more likely to be involved in interpersonal hostility and antisocial activities, specifically including violent crimes, reactive aggression, and intimate partner violence, even when conduct disorder is not present or is statistically controlled. ADHD is associated with increased substance use, so tobacco, alcohol, cannabis, and it is also associated with various adverse medical conditions, including increased rates of seizures, traumatic brain injury, dental trauma, and migraines. It's associated with poor self-care and decreased preventative care, including sleep problems, low exercise and physical activity, nutrition, and dental hygiene activities. So one of the most problematic impacts is the link between ADHD and health or food-related diseases, including obesity, eating pathology, sedentary behavior or low exercise, and risk for future coronary heart disease, diabetes, and other food-related diseases. So a little more to that piece. Previous studies have found that found high obesity rates in individuals with ADHD, which are noted to be caused primarily by unhealthy eating patterns. So as unhealthy eating patterns increase, the probability of health problems also increase. Research suggests unhealthy problematic food behaviors may be defined as risky behavior, similar to the other risk-taking behaviors that were previously noted that are often co-occurring with ADHD. So interestingly, a research study about unhealthy eating habits and ADHD in college-age populations found that students with ADHD reported a higher frequency of unhealthy foods and a lower frequency of healthy foods compared with the control group. So although participants in both groups consumed similar amounts of servings, calories, nutrients, etc. Students with ADHD actually reported worse healthy to unhealthy food consumption ratios. So these findings suggest that ADHD in students is not only associated with general overeating habits, but is primarily associated with a biased proportion of unhealthy versus healthy food consumption. So these unbalanced proportions of healthy versus unhealthy foods permeates our society in the form of our Western diet. It's this high fat, high sugar diet, which typically includes red meat, processed food, fast food, snacking, junk foods, which leads to food-related diseases, as we previously mentioned. Another impact on problematic eating patterns for those with ADHD is cognitive overload, which I will discuss a bit later in this presentation. So, what can we do about these risk factors, and is there a way to change them? So the short answer is yes. So estimated life expectancy is malleable. Change the adverse health and lifestyle factors affecting it, and one can improve quality of life as well as life expectancy. However, without efforts to address the background trait, such as poor inhibition specifically and ADHD symptoms in general, trying to improve only those first order factors may have only very limited success. So the ADHD-related reductions in life expectancy are extensive, but not unchangeable. So a study conducted at UConn actually produced a risk factor calculator and determined 14 risk factors, 9 of which they determined as being able to be altered or changed with implementation of appropriate interventions and strategies. So these changeable factors that they found were in areas of education, hygiene practices, weight, nutrition, exercise, sleep, driving risk, tobacco use, and alcohol use. So initiatives to improve overall health will improve life expectancy going forward if ADHD symptoms are under control first. So since ADHD causes underlying problems with inhibition, self-regulation, and conscientiousness, per Dr. Barkley, leaving the condition untreated or insufficiently treated will cause most patients to fail in their efforts to live a healthier lifestyle. Therefore, it's imperative to create an ADHD-friendly guide and put a system in place to help mitigate poor food choices and improve overall wellness. And we can create a system to build support for those with ADHD to develop a healthier lifestyle and improve life expectancy in the future. One way that we are personally trying to do this is through our Stop Losing the Food Fight group that we've created. So it's a group approach for learning ADHD-friendly strategies to build a healthy relationship with food and improve overall wellness. So we've created an 8-week-long ADHD-friendly group approach to addressing problematic eating habits fueled by symptoms associated with ADHD. So the information that we provide, the discussions we structure, and the interventions we create are doable and manageable. So we help individuals develop problem-solving skills surrounding their problematic eating patterns to promote change in their lives in a structured and supportive environment. The group setting also provides group members with accountability and camaraderie. So in the next few slides, I am going to briefly discuss some objectives that our participants learn throughout their time in our group. So some of which include evaluating and understanding any harmful habits they might have, exploring barriers that impact their healthy choices or their ability to maintain a healthy lifestyle, education about food, labels, nutrition to help them understand and create appropriate nutritional balance, learning strategies for self-control and impulse regulation, promoting task initiation, motivation, supporting and strategizing for ADHD-friendly meal planning and prepping, discussing time management and organization to help with success, and other maladaptive eating patterns that impact success in obtaining a healthy lifestyle, and overall wellness through MENS. Now, MENS stands for meditation or mindfulness. So learning to be intentional about the things that we do. Exercise or physical activity, being in nature, diet and appropriate nutritional intake, appropriate sleep hygiene, and social connectedness and engagement. So we incorporate these throughout our group's sessions to emphasize the importance of each of these aspects in supporting appropriate healthy habits in our daily lives. So this group works to help individuals with ADHD identify barriers to achieving healthy lifestyles, evaluate unhealthy eating habits or patterns, and recognize and challenge attitudes or mindsets about creating a healthy lifestyle. So these are often some barriers that impact success in creating or maintaining a healthy lifestyle. These are things that people often bring up and things that we hear pretty frequently. So healthy home cooked meals every night after a long day at work, managing the household or managing the children, it takes too long. I'm too tired after a long day. And it's just easier and frankly quicker to just pick something up or order something. Plus, there's no cleanup, so that's a plus as well. It's convenient, right? And they rather spend time doing other things. They don't want to spend an hour or 2 hours in the kitchen. To expand upon a bullet point from the previous slide, being too tired or exhaustion, right? It's often probably one of our biggest complaints or issues that come up, most frequently. So why are we all so tired all the time, seemingly? So one reason for this is cognitive overload. So what is cognitive load first? It's the amount of working memory resources used or the amount of information that our working memory can hold at one time. So what's working memory? It's our ability to briefly hold and manage information in our minds. We have a million little things to do and tasks that we try and remember to do and manage each day, right? And it can be as simple to as complex of things. It's like your mind's mental sketch pad. So what happens when we reach our cognitive load? So when we reach our cognitive load, our mind's trying to kind of slip into hibernation and it struggles to keep up. So we'll have poor information processing, poor memory, poor attention, task monitoring is really difficult. Planning and organization is even more difficult. So your mind, it's like a teacup, right? There's only so much that we can really put into it before it starts overflowing. So when we overflow, we begin to shut down. So individuals with ADHD, we reach our cognitive load much quicker than the neurotypical counterparts. So this leads to overload. Our teacup essentially starts overflowing much quicker. So why is that though? Well, ADHD is associated with a weaker function of the prefrontal cortex circuits of our brain, and some have even referred to it as a frontal lobe disorder. So this area of the brain is not only responsible for aspects of attention, but also executive functioning, including our working memory. It's our ability to problem solve, plan and organize information, execute tasks, task monitoring, and cognitive flexibility or switching between tasks. Therefore, if we have a much harder time than the average bear to manage all of the tasks that we have to do throughout our day. So note that is why utilizing strategies is so important, such as writing post-it notes, using a planner, using a calendar or phone reminders for things. So it kind of helps to ease the amount or the demand that we're placing on our working memory to help slow down that cognitive load or that cognitive overload, so we don't kind of overflow. All right. A little bit about more about cognitive overload and its impact on decision making, which is very poignant for our talk today with food choices, is some studies about cognitive overload found impacts on decision making, like food choices. So for example, a study by Bird Bredbenner in colleagues examined the relationship of cognitive load on eating and weight-related behaviors of young adults. So they found that compared to low cognitive load participants, the high cognitive load participants had poor eating and weight-related behaviors. They were more likely to eat less than 5 cups of fruits and vegetables a day. They had trends of higher BMIs and waist circumference, greater susceptibility to eating in response to external cues and emotional eating, and drinking more alcohol than the lower cognitive load patients or counterparts. So therefore, the cognitive load may be an important contributor to health behaviors. Understanding how cognitive load may affect eating and other weight-related behaviors can potentially lead to improvements in the effectiveness of obesity prevention and intervention programs. Another study evaluated the impact of chaos on cognitive overload. So in this study, chaos was noted as kind of disorganization, clutter, as well as mental chaos. So having unmanaged emotional dysfunction or difficulties or cognitive disorganization. So this study determined that chaos can contribute to overwhelm and cognitive overload, which led participants to shutting down, avoidance of task, less productivity, and increased likelihood of snacking on junk food. So they determined that chaotic environments could create a vulnerability to making unhealthy food choices. And one's mindset in that environment can either trigger or buffer against those vulnerabilities, depending on your intervention or strategy knowledge. Therefore, the research really speaks to the importance of overall total body wellness and environmental organization or environmental calm to promote overall healthy lifestyles. Similarly, one of my favorite studies, actually, it's one of the very first studies I learned about in my Psychology 101 class in undergraduate, many moons ago. But this study found that stress impaired the use of sophisticated choice strategies that require working memory, but did not affect use of simpler, more primitive strategies. So this impairment was really exacerbated in people with smaller working memory capacity. So in other words, people with ADHD typically. So in this study, they had two groups of people. One group, they required that group to memorize a 7-digit sequence of numbers. And the other group was only required to memorize a 2-digit number. And then they strategically placed a snack cart for everyone to graze at their leisure and select a snack from the snack cart. So what they found is that participants who were required to be in the group that had to memorize the 7-digit number, they tended to select unhealthier choices, such as chocolate cake was the primary choice. And those who were in the 2-digit group typically selected a fruit cup. So our brains start to become really overloaded when we have to recall larger quantities of information at a particular time, which really impacts our decision-making capacity. So perhaps this is why that telephone numbers are only 7 digits long, but I don't know. That could be something there. I don't know. So ultimately, the takeaway of cognitive overload is overload leads to complete cognitive exhaustion, being too tired to do anything, let alone cooking dinner, leads to poor food choices. So even if we have access, so for example, a full fridge full of food, healthy food, great food that we just spent all of our money on at Whole Foods or your grocery store of choice, right? Is we're too overloaded to figure it out. So sometimes even just figuring out what to eat, even what to order for dinner, or even microwaving something sometimes feels so daunting to people when we're that taxed, when we're that cognitively overloaded. So I think this is one of the most relatable things probably across most households, particularly between couples, is what do you want to eat for dinner tonight? Oh, I don't care, you pick, right? So more often than not, the I don't care, you pick is just cognitive overload. Our brains are just shut down, and the ability to actually just make that decision, even seemingly simple as what to eat for dinner, is sometimes impossible or feels like a mountain to climb. So it also leads to higher rates of food loss. So we have this fridge full of food, but no ability to figure out a meal or to cook. It ends up being more expensive and causes money loss because of the food waste. We end up throwing out all this produce that we filled up our fridge with because we had no capacity to be able to cook it during the week. So then it goes bad. And then of course, I'm sure that leads to a lot of guilt, and then we feel bad about that. So, all right. So other barriers or problems that arise is planning or motivation difficulties. So cognitive overload, we're too tired to do anything. That leads to a complete lack of motivation or ability to cook or even conceptualize cooking. So they rather spend their time doing other things. They just want something now, right? We're hungry and we don't have the capacity to figure out, want something quick, we want something convenient, which often typically means poor choices. And then we end up in this reliance or over-reliance on carryouts or fast food. Some people mention that they're not a great cook, they don't know how to cook, or they hate cooking. They just anxiety around the kitchen in general. Meal planning or prepping can feel very overwhelming for people. And then another issue is sometimes we get stuck. Lack of options, lack of access. We get stuck, we're hungry without healthy options. We're running around all day. Sometimes we just forget to eat. Sometimes we don't have enough time to eat. So then we kind of get stuck. So then we're more susceptible to making poor choices, unhealthy or impulsive choices. So one thing we work with our participants in our group on is how to kind of mitigate that, not letting ourselves get stuck. So create a healthy grab or stash bag to leave at your desk at work or in your car at the gym. And we construct a list or help them come up with things that would be appropriate and healthy choices to kind of get them by in a pinch so they don't end up making an impulsive or unhealthy choice to pass through the drive-through instead. All right, another difficulty that a lot of our group members face is triggers and cravings, which also get in the way of helping them maintain a healthy lifestyle. A lot of things can be triggered, can be triggering, such as foods, feelings, environments, etc. So food triggers, it's being around or having access to certain foods. It's that thing that you say you can't say no to, you can't have just one of, those kind of familiar statements that we say to ourselves or other people. Typically, it's things like sugar, it's the ice creams, cookies, desserts, chocolates, etc. Fats, fried, salty, crunchy, carbohydrates, pastas, breads, etc. And we have trigger feelings, and that's specific emotion that initiates poor food choices or overeating. We have trigger environments, and that can be specific situations, places or locations or people or events that lead us to poor choices or overeating habits. So triggers lead to cravings, and cravings, they can be worsened by too much downtime. You know, we're eating out of boredom, we're grazing. This came up a lot during COVID lockdown. People were working from home, maybe didn't have as much to do, and people just found themselves without even thinking, kind of going back and forth to the refrigerator, kind of just grazing throughout the day. So too much downtime, all or nothing. We start and we can't stop. We kind of go off the deep end, right? We say, oh, I'm only going to have a few, or I'm only going to have one of those, right? And then the next thing we know, we look down and the entire thing is gone, right? So just kind of that mindless, unintentional eating that occurs. And then unbalanced diet, which we've mentioned already, is too much of certain things and not enough of other things. So many people with ADHD tend to express anxiety or concern surrounding grocery store shopping because of impulsivity or dilemmas they find themselves in and no strategies to combat them. So typically impulse buying and poor choices at the store occur because we're unprepared. We kind of experience these triggers or these cravings because everything we could possibly want is staring us in the face, which leads to kind of a lack of self-control and then this impulse buying. So we help our group members combat this impulsive buying habit and or poor food choices in general at the store. And some of these strategies include helping create a grocery list and strategies to help them stick to it. And managing our cart habits, right? So we talk about, hey, it's okay to put poor choices in your basket, but make it a habit. By the time you get to that checkout line, that thing's no longer in that basket. So developing strategies on how to get to that point, right? How to work through some of those things while you're in the moment. And then creating a list of things to ask yourself when you're putting something questionable in your cart. So, do I need this or do I want this? Will this contribute to my health and my goals, or will this set me back? And is there a healthy alternative? We like to talk a lot about alternatives so is there a healthy alternative that will satisfy that same need I'm looking for? So if I'm craving something sweet or salty or crunchy, how can we find a healthier alternative to still satisfy that need? It will make me feel good now, but will it make me feel bad later? Also, a lot of people are visual people and really like to see the impact, like the true impact that it has on their consumption or their daily value. So checking the labels of things. And we do an overview on food, nutrition, as well as labels. So that will help people actually understand what they're looking at when they're looking at a label. And then reminding ourselves of our daily intake and then how impactful a serving size of that item will be. And so for the visual people who like this approach, a tracking app such as MyFitnessPal is really helpful in that sense. You can scan the barcode right in the store and it will add that one serving to your daily journal or your daily food journal, and you'll see the actual impact of that item on your overall daily intake. And sometimes that's striking enough for people to put that item back. So other maladaptive eating patterns that impact individuals with ADHD and prevent people from adopting or maintaining a healthy lifestyle include these listed here. So binge eating is the consumption of large quantities of food in a short period of time. Impulse eating, we're eating when we're not hungry, or you find yourself kind of obsessing about thoughts of food and weight. Chronic or compulsive overeating. So eating until we're full or we're stuffed, eating too quickly, being part of the quote unquote clean plate club. You know, we've been primed from a very young age to associate a clean plate or finishing our food with goodness and a reward. If you finish your plate, then you get dessert, right? So when we overeat, we actually stretch out our stomachs and then we require more food to feel satisfied later. Night eating syndrome, it combines overeating at night with sleep problems. So eating a lot after dinner, having trouble sleeping, frequent sleep disruption, and eating when we wake up during the night. We also discuss medication issues. Some people are taking medications that suppress their appetite, so they have a lack of appetite, they don't feel hungry, or they really forget to eat throughout the day. And then this can also lead to some of those other eating patterns that I mentioned right before this. If the medication wears off and we haven't eaten all day, suddenly now we're feeling overly hungry, and then we might binge or eat impulsively or compulsive overeat, things like that. Emotional eating, using food for comfort to suppress or soothe negative feelings. So this is one of my favorite topics, is that this actually increases activity in the dopaminergic pathways in our brain. So that's the pleasure or reward centers of our brain. So that's what junk food does. It kind of lights up some of these areas of the brain. That's why we kind of become a little happy or sometimes euphoric when we're eating some of these pleasurable foods. So interestingly, that these areas are the same areas of the brain that light up when someone uses things like cocaine, right? So drugs and junk food actually light up the same areas of the brain, those pleasure or reward centers of the brain. So if you eat junk food, some people might notice that's why a lot of people say, I can't just eat one, right? Because when you start to eat, your brain actually craves more of it. And it is a lot harder to say no, and it's a lot harder to stop those habits. But if we don't indulge in them as much, then it makes it a lot easier to stay away from them because our brain isn't triggered to try and seek that reward again. And then also mindless eating. So eating out of boredom, kind of nonchalantly walking to the fridge without really, recognizing what we're doing, eating when we're not hungry, eating without thinking. So, we're watching TV, we're surfing the internet, we have a bag of chips next to us. Oh, suddenly the bag is gone, right? So kind of non-intentional eating. So we talk a lot about doing things intentionally. Everything we do it intentionally. Including eating. So eat with intention. So overall wellness and its impact on all other aspects of our lives. So for example, mood management and appropriate sleep hygiene is crucial in maintaining a healthy lifestyle. So not obtaining an appropriate amount of sleep because of poor sleep initiation, poor sleep maintenance, being a night owl, staying up too late for no reason, These things lead to daytime fatigue, they lead to low energy. So consistently poor sleep leads to cognitive and emotional impacts. Poor sleep also leads to poor processing speed, attention, memory problems, as well as mood regulation difficulties. So all of this can really lead to reaching cognitive overload much quicker, and then, of course, making poor decisions like food choices. So in turn, poor management of mood symptoms or stress and anxiety can also impact sleep and can also lead to an inability to make good choices. So emotional eating, food temporarily makes us feel better and calmer, but long-term consequences are more detrimental. So like we just talked about, junk food being addictive, junk food lighting up those dopaminergic pathways in the brain, those reward centers in the brain. We also talk about hoarding or food anxiety behaviors. So many people have this feeling or a drive or this thought of, I need to have some or make sure that I get that food item. Otherwise, my partner, my kids, our family dog will eat it all and we won't get any, right? So we spent the time, we went to the store, we got this thing, we wanted some, and then, oh no, it's running out. I need to make sure that I get some before it does. So feeling of kind of needing to eat items before others or before they're gone. Labeling food. So this is mom's food, or this is mom's beverage, or whatever. Don't drink it or don't have it. Hiding or stashing food items to eat later on, either out of view with others because we're trying to keep some for ourselves, or feelings of shame associated with that. Social and societal pressures are a big area of concern for many of our members, and a general area of difficulty for those with ADHD as well in making appropriate food choices. So there's a lot of assumptions and a lot of habits about social events. So a lot of those assumptions include activities always revolve around food or food consumption. All of my friends, they just want to go out to eat. We can't have a good time with my friends unless I'm consuming blank, carbs, fat, sugar, alcohol, whatever it is. People only want to do things that revolve around food or involve food and drink. No one wants to do other activities. No one else is struggling like I am. No one else is on a diet. I don't want to make it an issue. I don't want to be a problem. And feeling like we have no support or feeling alone or isolated, and sometimes we'll even hear that during an event or from a family or friend, is that being told, oh, one or a little bit won't hurt you. You only do it once, or you don't do it often, or whatever. Also, again, the kind of the clean plate club comes up again, or judgments or guilt from others about our healthy choices. Oh, you're so good for having a salad, or, oh, you're so good for taking that to go, and then it feels judgmental sometimes. And then sometimes it makes us kind of feel bad makes us feel bad for trying to be good, right? Also unhealthy societal expectations and really gendered food choices. This has been pretty problematic for quite some time in our society. So a lot of kind of gendered assumptions or stereotypes for women must be perfect, must eat healthy and exercise and be skinny, have your makeup done, be put together, be a perfect mom, but also maintain a good job, eat salads. And then a lot of menstrual cycle assumptions that kind of perpetuate a problem. Oh, just buy her ice cream or chocolate or some wine and she'll be nicer, right? And for men, they also have a lot of these stereotypes as well. Must be the breadwinner, eating bad food is masculine, right? Finishing that plate of nachos or wings or tailgate food, right? Salads aren't manly. It's rabbit food. Oh, he can drink a whole case of beer. Drinking competitions, must be physically strong, yet not required to work out to accomplish that. So I think we're getting better about this as a society, but there's still room for improvement because these stereotypes are pretty unhelpful for everyone. So many individuals have a very negative and poor mindset or attitude towards healthy eating and maintain a healthy lifestyle, which greatly impacts success or even the desire for success. So a lot of people have this all or nothing thinking, right? So nothing that is good for me tastes good, and that's not true. We really troubleshoot a lot of different things in the group of how to really get pleasure from some of the shift in habit. So our pleasure will shift as our habits shift as well, and creating really healthy, palatable, and food that we can enjoy. And can never have bad foods. I only have to stick to this healthy diet. I'm never going to eat what I want again, which also is not true. That's the big takeaway from our group is creating these ADHD-friendly, doable, maintainable lifestyle strategies, as well as with food, of being able to partake in some of those foods that you do enjoy without going off the deep end, right? So balance and creating an appropriate nutritional balance throughout your day. And then prepping our healthy foods is too difficult. It's overwhelming. It takes too much time. Again, we're working on strategies to develop ways to make this a lot less complicated, a lot simpler, and how to make it a lot doable and maintainable for people. Again, we touched on those social assumptions and habits, as well as the hoarding and anxiety behavior surrounding foods. We're challenging a lot of these things and a lot of these mindsets. So what will happen if you don't get that food item? Many people have that drive or that feeling like we were talking about. Don't eat all of that, save some for me. I haven't had any yet. So some of that anxiety around kind of missing out. But we work on challenging some of those thoughts and behaviors. So if we don't get any, is that a problem? What will happen if we don't? So we really work to detangle need from access. So we can always typically get more of something, and we try and help create thoughts of worth or impact on our health. So you can always truly have access to something, right? And again, challenging that clean plate club that a lot of us is the thing of a past a lot of us did grow up with. You don't have to finish your plate. Many of us grew up with that you can't have dessert unless you clean your plate, right? Or there are hungry kids in blank, insert a less fortunate country here, right? So we've really been primed to associate leftovers with badness or guilt or selfishness, and a clean plate with, or finishing our plate, even if we're no longer hungry, with a reward, typically dessert. So we're working to really rewrite that narrative. So take it to go. It's totally fine. So the ultimate goal is finding ADHD-friendly solutions that work for you. It's individualized, it's adaptable, it's for each member to help promote success in their world. So to understand food behaviors and how to develop a healthy lifestyle, we must understand food, what it is, and what it all means, right? So knowledge is power. How can we make appropriate and healthy choices or change unhealthy choices if we don't really know what the foods are doing to us or for us nutritionally? Therefore, in our group, we do provide basic education about nutrition and what is really needed to create a well-balanced, healthy meal. Appropriate plate ratios of carbohydrates, discussing simple versus complex carbs, good fats versus bad fats, differences in proteins, differences in refined versus natural sugars. We also discuss the difficulties or problems with the problematic ratios or Western diet. So too much bad fats, the fried foods and things like that, and not enough lean protein. So too many simple carbs, too much refined sugars. So we strive to create an ADHD guide to healthy eating and living so people can not only adopt but maintain a healthy lifestyle. So we help members set realistic goals regarding food and meal planning. So what's good and realistic for them? It's individual, it's different for everyone. What works good for me might not work good for you. So we really tailor to help individuals come up with what works for them and their families. We help members to think smarter and not harder with ADHD tips and tricks and shortcuts, both in the kitchen as well as grocery store hacks. We help them learn to manage cooking for one person versus feeding a family. That's a big thing that comes up a lot, is I don't know how to cook for one, or I don't know how to cook for five. And so strategies and hacks surrounding that, as well as tips and tricks for eating out and strategies to manage difficult situations when eating out. So we also help members to develop strategies to help maintain healthy eating in other or more challenging food environments. So when some situations are somewhat out of our control, it's not our day-to-day kind of food routines. So when we're kind of faced with food and social triggers or family stressors, how can we develop strategies and put a plan of action in place to help get through some of those gatherings, and help them to develop these strategies to not only challenge or mitigate barriers, but maintain healthy habits during things like holidays. We discuss what things they may anticipate and help them to develop an individualized action plan for those events. And of course, we're always available for support, including ongoing support even after the 8-week group concludes. So we provide ongoing support services to help members with maintenance, as well as providing them with up-to-date resources and a whole strategy library. So what is the role of the Food Fight group? Or how is this group helping those with ADHD address these aforementioned problems and barriers and impacts to achieving a healthy lifestyle? Well, you'll have to join our group to find out. But in a nutshell, its focus is on a team effort to create effective problem-solving skills. So we find ways to make it harder to engage in unhealthy behaviors and ways to make it easier to engage in healthy eating behaviors. Helping members to plan ahead with easy ADHD-friendly meal planning and prepping strategies, grocery store hacks, kitchen tips and tricks, grocery delivery, meal kits, things like that. That makes everything simple and easy to maintain. Understanding healthy versus non-healthy choices, habits, triggers, helping members change their mindsets and attitudes, changing this all or nothing thinking that tends to be a problem, about maintaining a healthy lifestyle and healthy eating patterns. Providing support through social and family pressures surrounding eating out and other gatherings outside of our typical routines. How we can make good choices in difficult situations, how we can avoid temptations, but if we can't avoid temptations, how can we build a toolkit of strategies to help utilize in those situations? Strategies to manage medication impacts. So if we're not feeling hungry or go without eating all day, how to manage some of those issues. Problem solving surrounding physical activity and exercise difficulties. Accountability, changing social dynamics, finding fun outside of food and outside of drinking. Focusing on overall wellness, the importance of sleep, hydration, nutrition, being in nature, being in a social, engaging atmosphere, social connection that hopefully doesn't always revolve around food. All of these areas impact mental, emotional, physical well-being, and they ultimately impact our decision making and problematic food patterns. So it was a pleasure speaking with you all today, and I'd love if you all would join our Living a Healthy Lifestyle with ADHD email list. So for more information about this topic, about food in general, please feel free to contact me. And I would love to take some questions. My email is still at the bottom of this page, so feel free to jot that down and reach out to me at any time. And feel free to visit our website as well. If you have any interest in our food fight group, we still have a few spots open left. So thank you. Any questions?